Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Workers at Firearm Licensing Authority stage sick out. Legislation to be fast-tracked to combat petty larceny. And later in sports, reggae girls think positive despite being knocked out of 2023 World Cup. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. Padlocked gates greeted persons who turned up at the Firearm Licensing Authority's head office on Old Hope Road in St. Andrew this morning. The facility was closed for the Independence holiday, but was expected to reopen on Tuesday. Reports are that the employees staged a sick-out. President of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, Tesha Clark-Griffiths, says she only learned of the strike today.
I have tried to make contact with members there. However, I spoke to one person there who indicated that their workers are actually on strike. I have about 25 members there. Only 4 turned up for work this morning.
TVJ News checked with the FLA's offices in Montego Bay and Mandeville, and they were also closed. Mrs. Clark-Griffith says the workers are upset about the public sector compensation review exercise. Of concern is the delayed revision for the contract workers. The Finance Minister revealed late last year that contract workers will begin their discussions a year after the full-time staff. But the JCSA president says the workers are not satisfied about this.
So you have one set of workers who are on contract who are not getting the same pay as those who are not on contract, and so that is creating an issue. So they are paid less with effect from April 2022. So we are aware that the government has commenced the process of putting some staff in some entities on employment, but there are some in other entities who have not yet commence that process, and so that is complicating the issue.
She says a meeting is being scheduled with the union members this week. As it relates to when the workers will be back to work, she wasn't able to say. It is not clear how the strike will impact firearm holders whose licenses expire today. A number of measures are being discussed by the government to reduce petty larceny. Among them, new legislation and the use of microchip technology. Halshane Burke reports.
Agriculture Minister Floyd Green has been tasked with getting critical legislation in place to deal with the country's petty larceny problem. For decades, farmers have been at the mercy of petty larcenists. Speaking at the Denby Agricultural Show on Monday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says it's now time to treat with the issue.
At its core, it is reprehensible that someone should reap where they did not sow. Petty larceny is also a socio-cultural element involved. It is now becoming almost an unspoken part of our culture, accepted. And I think that is another area that we need to address. We must respect the efforts of our farmers.
Hence, he says legislation to tackle the practice is to be fast-tracked.
The Minister of Agriculture has been tasked with coming up with a viable solution to this issue of predial larceny. There was already legislation in place for a special police force, agricultural police force, and the minister has been tasked with getting that legislation operational.
The government will also be moving ahead with the implanting of chips in the animals. This, the Prime Minister says, will help to track the animals. The chip idea was raised by J.C. Hutchinson back in 2008 when he was a state minister in the Agriculture Ministry. Mr. Hutchinson at the time said that special sensors would be placed at specific locations to alert farmers if their animals are being stolen.
We are working with the technology providers to work out a solution that can be easily deployed and afforded by our farmers. We must conquer this business of predial larceny.
Halshane Burke, TVJ News.
A member of the People's National Party is calling for a change in the political discourse, especially on campaign platforms. It comes following scathing comments from both sides of a political aisle as the climate heats up. Now, speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica on Tuesday, former General Secretary of the party, Paul Burke, says while there has been a change from the political styles of the 1970s in recent years, things are now seemingly getting worse.
In recent weeks, there have been some uncalled for and unfortunate statements, I'd agree. But in the past, we had a political ombudsman. And I know that both parties were often summoned by the political ombudsman. And in most cases, there were agreement for a withdrawal and an apology. So there was some kind of governance by some third party, impartial third party. But I want to accept that each party has to govern its own speakers. We in the PNP must govern ourselves. We must be somewhat more responsible.
He further noted that in the 70s, majority of the attacks on characters were done on the political stage as there were limited cameras and social media was non-existent. It's why, like other stakeholders in society, Mr. Burke is calling for the office of a political ombudsman to be reinstated.
How it was done was very unfortunate. There was no consultation between the parties. When the political office of the political ombudsman was being set up, there was consultation between the two parties. The two parties agreed that there needed to be such a person. My understanding, the both parties agreed on the individual. And my own view is that the individual did an excellent job, impartial, and really had some effect, even though she never had the teeth to sanction.
Right.
But she was very good at moral persuasion. And I would believe that 90% of the time, her ability for moral persuasion, right, worked.
Stakeholders in Clarendon are increasing the call for young people to enroll in skills-based programs. In response to the ongoing shortage of skilled labour, the authorities say they have increased the number of centres across the parish. More from Dwayne Anderson.
The country schools are closed for the summer, and young people need an avenue to channel their energy. Stakeholders in Clarendon recognize that reality and want to ensure the youth do not get involved in delinquent behaviour.
And you wake up in the morning and drive out for as early as 6 o'clock. You see persons with some liquor something in them hand, what them call special. Look here, once you see these persons, you know that they are not going anywhere. So I'm saying to you, young people, that is not what we want to see of you.
It is why dozens of students from various high schools were gathered at a summer camp in Maypen and taken through courses on social etiquette and other life skills. The teenagers were also told how to sign up for skills-based professions, which the authorities say are not only lucrative but are also in high demand in the country.
The plumbers, the electricians, the masons, they are the ones that are making money. It's very easy for one of them to make all $100,000 a week if they work hard at it. Very easy. But you need to learn the trade. Hard program is there for you to learn.
This is why the government has expanded the Hard Trust program. The Hard Trust program first time used to be just 1 or 2 little areas in the parish. Now Hard Trust programs are being run all over the parish because what? We want everybody, no, regardless of the age, to get a skill.
The Custos of Clarendon, William Shiguri, also used the occasion to share reminders with the young people on how to care for the environment, especially amid the increased temperatures caused by climate change.
I have never felt heat like this in my entire life, and it's only going to get hotter. So if we continue to throw garbage on the side of the road, bottles, plastic bottles on the side of the road and bags, will end up in the rivers, in the stream, the gullies, and into the sea. It's only going to quicken what is happening today.
The camp is a social intervention initiative put on by the Social Development Commission, SDC, in Clarendon. Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The story now about another attempt to maintain peace in the crime-hit community of Dunkirk in East Kingston. Karen Simpson tells us more.
Residents of McIntyre Villa or Dunkirk have been experiencing relative peace and quiet in the past few months. The improvement in the sometimes volatile East Kingston community is partly due to social interventions and peace initiatives. A group of Jamaicans living in Atlanta, Georgia in the U.S. and representing the Carib Atlanta Sports Club is the latest to lend its support for lasting peace in the community. Headed by President Courtney Brown, the group on Saturday hosted a fun day at the Vauxhall High School where members of the community were able to interact with each other. The children were not left out of the fun. They were also given bags and books to assist with back to school.
I feel great, and them did it so that the community can come back to one and peace. Every year when time them did the community can get better and better and better until peace and unity.
We don't can walk in at night without hearing even one single shot. One that stop now. So what them keep on doing this over and over so the community can get better and better.
There was also a game of netball between a community team and the Vauxhall High School. The men from the community also tested their skills in the game of football against the visiting Carib Atlanta team. For members of the community, the unity was the most important aspect of the day's proceedings.
An annual event is something that we'd really love to have, but this is something that brings peace in the community also. So we'd really love this. I mean, you have gentlemen from all over. The Masters League that's going on now is gentlemen from all over, and this is peace in the community. So we really endorse this and really appreciate this.
Well, it's a good look, Come like the look, and people don't come out and support the thing and the two team there. A full jar themselves same way. Bounce about there and bounce our Masters and thing there and all the peace, And for the peace there. Everything there.
Everything, a little bit of something for everybody, right? Because we wanted the entire community to come out and have fun and be included into what we're doing this weekend. So to build a good vibes for the holiday, Independence Day weekend, we just want to build a good vibes, make it nice and easy, right?
The plan is to make the event an annual affair, with next year being bigger and better. Carrie Simpson, TVJ News.
And it's now time for the Business Minute.
Interim CEO of the NCB Financial Group, Robert Almeida, has been appointed chairman of Guardian Holdings Limited. His appointment took effect on August 4. Mr. Almeida succeeds Patrick Hilton, who along with Dennis Cohen were relieved of their roles with the major financial group. Further afield, imports and exports in China fell more sharply than expected last month, as weaker global demand threatened the recovery prospects of the world's second largest economy. Official figures show that exports fell by 14.5% in July compared with a year earlier, while imports dropped 12.4%. The lackluster figures reinforce concerns that the economic growth in the country could slow further this year. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Belize Prime Minister John Briceño is warning that price gouging must come to an end. He says he is willing to meet with the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry about the issue. The business group says it is also ready to meet with the country's leader to discuss the issue, which is reportedly being driven by rising labor, transportation, and licensing costs. On the international scene, over 1,000 buses have begun ferrying scouts at an international event in South Korea out of a campsite due to an incoming tropical storm. Helicopters and police cars have been escorting the buses from the disaster-threatened Jamboree. The threat of the storm comes just days after hundreds at the camp fell ill in temperatures of 35 degrees Celsius. South Korea's president has cut short his holiday to help manage the fallout from the gathering. And at least 6 people were killed in Slovenia by devastating floods and other adverse weather conditions. Property damage from the disaster is estimated at over $500 million. The floods, which started with torrential rains over the weekend, caused rivers to rise and break out into fields, towns, and destroyed roads and other infrastructure. The Slovenian government has applied for international assistance through EU and NATO. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report.